The year was 1943. World War II had reached its deadliest stage. Over the skies of Europe, the air war between the Allies and Nazi Germany had become a brutal daily routine. Every single day, hundreds of American bombers, giant B-17 flying fortresses, took off from air bases in England, crossing the cold skies over the North Sea to strike deep inside Germany. Their targets were factories, oil refineries, and military supply centers, the industrial heart of Hitler's war machine. But for the men on those bombers, every mission felt like a death sentence. German anti-aircraft fire, known as flak, filled the skies like exploding black clouds. And after that came the fast, deadly fighters of the Luftwaffe. One of those American bombers was named Ye Olde Pub, commanded by 2nd Lieutenant Charlie Brown, a 21-year-old pilot from West Virginia on his very first combat mission. On December 20th, 1943, his target was Bremen, a heavily defended city in northern Germany. Everything that could go wrong did. As the bomber approached the target, it was hit repeatedly by German flak. Its nose was smashed, one engine knocked out, and several crew members were wounded. Then came the fighter attacks. Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs swarmed the formation, tearing through the bombers like wolves attacking a herd. By the time Ye Olde Pub left Bremen, it was barely flying. The tail gunner was dead. The oxygen system was destroyed. And the plane had over 100 bullet holes. It was falling behind the formation, alone, easy prey for enemy fighters. And that's when a German pilot spotted them.
His name was Franz Stigler, a Luftwaffe fighter ace with 27 confirmed kills. He had been flying since before the war began, trained by veterans of the Spanish Civil War. That day, he had already taken off to intercept the American bombers. As he looked up, he saw a single B-17, flying low, damaged, and struggling to stay in the air. Stigler's instinct as a fighter pilot told him one thing: finish the job. One more kill, and he would qualify for Germany's highest military honor, the Knight's Cross. He powered up his Messerschmitt Bf 109, got behind the bomber, and prepared to fire. But when he came closer, what he saw stunned him. Through the holes and shattered metal, he could see the faces of the American crew. Some were slumped over. Others were desperately trying to help the wounded. Blood covered the inside of the fuselage. One man's hand was still on a machine gun, but it was motionless. He was dead. Stigler eased off the trigger. He later recalled, "I could not shoot. It would be the same as shooting a man in a parachute." He was a soldier, but also a man raised with strict moral values. His commanding officer, Gustav Rodel, had once told him, "If I ever see you shoot at a man in a parachute, I will shoot you myself." Those words echoed in his head. So Stigler made a decision that went against everything expected of him, sein Willen, and against the laws of war. He would not destroy this bomber. He would protect it. Stigler pulled his Messerschmitt alongside the crippled American bomber. The two planes flew wing to wing, enemies separated by just a few meters. Inside, Charlie Brown and his crew couldn't believe what they were seeing. A German fighter flying right beside them, not firing. At first, Brown thought it was a trap. He told his crew to stay alert, expecting the German to finish them at any second. But instead, Stigler motioned with his hands, signaling them to turn toward Sweden, a neutral country where they could land and survive. The Americans, confused and disoriented, didn't understand the gestures. They kept heading northwest, straight toward England. Stigler knew that if German anti-aircraft batteries detected the bomber on radar, they would shoot it down immediately. So, in an extraordinary act of defiance, Stigler made a decision that could have cost him his life. He flew beside the American plane, escorting it all the way to the North Sea, pretending to attack, so German gunners wouldn't open fire. Imagine that scene. A German fighter flying side by side with an American bomber, protecting it through German airspace, just so its crew could live. Two enemies sharing the same sky, united by nothing but a sense of humanity. When they reached the coast, Stigler looked at Charlie Brown through the glass. He raised his hand in a salute, a gesture of honor, and then turned back toward Germany. Brown, in shock, returned the salute. That moment, lasting only a few seconds, would change both of their lives forever.
And the last thing it did, waved to us just like that. Peeled off to the right and went down.
What were you saying with the wave?
I say, I hope you make it home. That's what my wave was about.
After he landed, Franz Stigler never told what happened. He was worried about being court-martialed. Charlie Brown and his crew did tell the story, but Army Air Force intelligence covered it up. In 1943, they didn't think the story of a chivalrous German pilot would help the war effort.
When the bomber finally landed back in England, it was a miracle. The aircraft was barely holding together. The crew was exhausted, frostbitten, and in shock. Mechanics counted over 300 bullet holes in the plane. And yet, somehow, they made it home. Charlie Brown immediately told his commanders about the German pilot who had spared them. But the officers ordered him to stay quiet. They feared that if the story spread, other Allied crews might hesitate or go soft in combat. So the event was buried, forgotten by history. Brown went back to flying missions, surviving the rest of the war, but the image of that German pilot haunted him for decades. He wondered who the man was, and why he didn't shoot. On the other side of the world, Franz Stigler also survived the war. Disillusioned by the Nazi regime, he moved to Canada, starting a quiet life as a mechanic. He never told anyone about the day he let an American bomber go free. He thought no one would believe him. For almost 50 years, both men lived their lives, unaware that the other was still alive. Then, in 1990, everything changed. Charlie Brown, now retired, decided to search for the German pilot who spared him. He wrote to veteran associations, Luftwaffe groups, and war archives. Months later, a letter came back from a man in Canada. It was signed Franz Stigler. When they met for the first time, nearly half a century after that day in the sky, both men broke down in tears. They embraced like long-lost brothers. Brown said, "I never thought I'd see you again." And Stigler replied, "I never wanted you to die." From that day on, they became inseparable. They called each other often, spent holidays together, and spoke at schools and events, sharing their story of honor, mercy, and forgiveness. Their friendship lasted for the rest of their lives. In 2008, Franz Stigler passed away. A few months later, Charlie Brown followed. They were both buried only a few miles apart, two former enemies laid to rest as brothers. Their story reminds us that even in the darkest chapters of history, humanity can still shine through. It's a story not of war, but of compassion. Not of hatred, but of honor. And in a world torn by conflict, their act of mercy remains one of the most powerful moments of World War II.